Episode 144 of the Interpretation Station is called to order. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. How are we all doing today? Very short introduction from me today, because today's episode is actually a recording of a session of a class that I had just a couple of days ago at the weekend with the Argentine Association of Conference Interpreters, ADICA. Okay, so we organised this. Was contacted by a couple of people at the association, especially, I would highlight Camila Oyen. So she was really the organiser of this class. It was very pleasure. It was a very fun experience. There was about 14, 15 people attended. I will just say a big hello to them before I go on. So a big shout out to Violeta, Marina, Guadalupe, Veronica, Karen, Olga, Eugenia, Santiago, Diana, Camila, Gerardo, he was the chairman of the association, Julio, Julia, Agustina, Victoria, Lara, Julieta, Mercedes, Felix, and Paula. I don't know if they all attended, but either way, they really enjoyed it. It was very good fun. And just to give you, so that you can be prepared, so we looked at 3 texts, okay, in this session. One was by Peru at the Conference on Disarmament. That was from last week. Then we looked at a statement by Ecuador on the situation in Ukraine. And the final statement, especially for the Argentinians, was a statement by Argentina at it was an urgent debate on the human rights and the situation of human rights of women and girls in Afghanistan. So, as per usual, I will be leaving the links to those statements in the description box, so you can go and practice them yourselves. As usual, I recommend that you give them a go. You give the 3 of them a go, record yourself, and then come back and watch the episode. Watch my commentary or the group's commentary, shall we say, on the various vocabulary used. And big special thanks. So Santiago, there was a word an expression that cropped up during the meeting, and it was all about garantizar que se haga justicia. Right, and you hear this all the time, que se haga justicia. And in English, whenever I do it, I always sort of talk about, we've got to ensure accountability, we need to ensure that justice is done. But the expression in English is we need to ensure that justice is served. Justice is served. And it's always eluded me. And Santiago gave me it. And you know what? In my meeting today, so I was working this morning in the Human Rights Council, which, funny enough, is presided by an Argentinian gentleman. And in this morning's meeting, there was I can't remember what the situation was. But anyway, that expression came up. I was able to talk about justice being served. So, Santiago, nice one. Okay, enough of that. Let's now go on and see how that session went. Okay, it's over to me.
Okay, so first I'd like to welcome everyone to this meeting. As you know, we
Puedes
have
hablar
gathered
español si quieres.
Oh, sí,
Para empezar, yo voy a hablar
Para
inglés
empezar.
durante la clase, pero por ahora. Sí.
Bueno, macanudo. Después te vamos a enseñar qué significa eso de macanudo.
Macanudo.
Bueno, macanudo, sí.
¿Qué quiere decir?
Okay.
Cool. Macanudo.
That's what it means, yeah.
Bárbaro.
Bueno, bárbaro, exactamente.
Bárbaro.
Bueno, buenas tardes todos y todas. Para quienes no me conocen o no nos conocen, yo soy Gerardo Benzi, presidente de ADICA. Estamos con Camila, la tesorera de ADICA. Primero quiero dar y con Roland, que va a ser nuestro instructor hoy en este taller de Inglés B. Así que, bueno, primero que nada, bienvenidos todos los socios de ADICA que se sumaron a esta iniciativa, que esperamos que sea muy provechosa. Bienvenida a Paula Ortiz, que es la decana de la Escuela de Lenguas de la Universidad de El Salvador. Agradecemos mucho su presencia, sabiendo que hoy tienen su jornada anual, así que bueno, gracias por estar, Paula. Y también bienvenidos y bienvenidas los y las estudiantes de interpretación de la universidad que se han anotado. Estamos muy contentos de tenerlos con nosotros. Siempre nos gusta participar con estudiantes de las actividades que hacemos. Así que bueno, nos encanta que se hayan sumado y esperamos que también lo encuentren útil. Bueno, sin más, yo como oyente voy a apagar la cámara y el micrófono. Le vamos a dar el espacio a Roland para que inicie el ejercicio. Por último, no me quiero olvidar de agradecerle a Camila, que fue la que tuvo la iniciativa de esta capacitación y se ocupó de hacer todas las gestiones con Roland y, bueno, gestionar toda la logística para que hoy esto sea posible. Así que, bueno, sin más, le vamos a dar la palabra a Roland para que inicie los ejercicios. Bueno, Roland, muchas gracias nuevamente y te escuchamos. Real ears.
Muchas gracias a tú también, Gerardo. Okay, guys, I'm really pleased you could come today. Let me just I'll just quickly tell you about me if you don't know what I do. So I'm an interpreter, French, Russian, and Spanish. So at my work, I work into English. Everything's at the UN. Most things are done from your C languages into your C or B languages into your mother tongue, native language. So I was in New York for 8 years between 2009 and till 2017. Then I came here to Geneva in 2017. So yeah, I've been here for 5 years. And then there's the mascot, the interpretation station mascot. That's Maggie. Hopefully she won't make too many problems during this. We'll see. My hobby on the side, you may have noticed, is, well, as of about 2 years ago, I started the interpretation station. Okay, maybe some of you guys have had a chance to watch some of the episodes. My only fee for this lesson today is if you would just kindly subscribe to the interpretation station and like the video when I bring it out. That's my only fee. I'm very cheap. I'm very cheap kind of guy, low maintenance guy. So I hope, everything I've done on the interpretation station is basically based on the way I sort of make my episodes. That's based on what I couldn't find when I was learning to be an interpreter, I don't know, 15 years ago. I look at it from that perspective. I try and give people what I couldn't find so readily when I was trying to become an interpreter. That's my technique, if you like. That's the sort of angle I'm coming at it from. So yeah, I hope I can teach you a few things today. Maybe what the way I'm going to do it is, because there's like quite a few of us here. 14. I mean, I think perhaps you've seen previous episodes I've done like this. I called them Sunday at 6 episodes, when people came, like this. And I've chosen some texts for you, which hopefully you've all received, right? Okay, like three texts should keep us going. And we'll just be looking at typical sort of UN texts, and we'll just be going through them together. Please feel free to volunteer. So I'll be asking for volunteers as we go along. So anyone can volunteer. Likewise, feel free not just to watch and just to observe and just to listen. So and we can, so it's entirely up to you if you want to take part or not. And yeah, I think we'll get started. Are there any questions before we start from any of you guys? Or is everything more or less clear? I see Lara switching her mic on. Or is that just an accident? Okay. All right. So I'm going to share. So the first one we're going to do, okay, is I should have sent it to you in one file, but I'm a bit shit when it comes to technology. So you got 3 files instead. So I'm going to start with, there's one by Peru, okay? There was Peru and there was 2, okay? So I am just going to share, I'm just going to share the screen with you. Okay. Can everybody see that okay? Yeah?
Yes.
Excellent. All right. So this was a statement that this was actually in a meeting I had this week, just this past week, okay, in the Conference on Disarmament, the CD, as it's sometimes called. I don't know if you've ever run into statements from this organization or this committee before. I have actually done episodes. I've done a few episodes on the interpretation station from stuff from the conference on disarmament. I think one of the early episodes, maybe Belgium. I did a long statement by Belgium on the conference on disarmament, and I gave an introduction about 20 minutes, just sort of telling you what it's about, what its work is based on, and so on. I will leave, for the benefit of people watching this on the video, I will leave a link to that episode up here somewhere. Okay. All right. So it was actually my colleague that did this statement, not me. But no, it's a good sort of typical statement at the UN that's delivered. So just a sort of nice, easy one to get us started. So please do volunteer, those who would like to give it a try, and I will select someone. Do we have any volunteers? I see Santiago. You volunteering, Santiago? Yes.
Yes.
You are. Excellent. Well, I'm going to start
I can break the ice. Yeah.
I should go ladies first, but if there's no other ladies. There's no ladies volunteering. I'm going to have to go with you, Santiago.
Okay.
All right. So yeah, off you go.
Okay. So, Mr. President.
Hey, just tell me. How would you? Just give me 1 second.
Oh, okay.
Just give me 1 sec. I'll just let you get the little thing so I can. Okay. How would you say that word in English? It seems simple, but just tell me. So, what's the
address?
So your best word, the safest word is always statement. Exactly. Okay. You do hear it in English, intervention. All right, but in English doesn't quite sound right. Whenever in doubt, just say statement. Okay, and statement is very versatile. You can basically say it for any stuff. Okay, address, speech. You see, this isn't a speech really. Okay.
Remarks.
That's nice, actually. That can work quite a lot of the time. Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, remarks. I like that. Okay, Santiago. So yeah, off. And so yeah, the representante permanente is, again, if you're not familiar with the UN. So at the end of the UN, they're not they are ambassadors, but they tend to be referred to as the permanent representatives or the perm reps. Or the PRs you'll hear. Okay.
Okay. Right.
Okay.
So
off you go.
Mr. President, let me begin my statement by saying how pleased I am to see you, the representative of the friendly country of Ecuador, presiding over this conference on disarmament. We wish you every success, and you have all our support for this role.
Okay, that sounds pretty good. So it is actually a president here. The conference on disarmament has a president. Some of these bodies have chairs, some have presidents. Here it is actually a president. So yeah, let me begin this statement. I would perhaps say, I might even just skip the statement. I would maybe start by saying, let me begin by... Say you said saying thank you. What did you say? You said something saying how
pleased I am.
How pleased I am. You know, expressing my thanks, conveying my thanks, extending my gratitude. These are good sort of 3 synonyms: expressing, extending, conveying, in sort of very formal English to begin these sort of these formalities. Yeah. To see you representative of a friendly country, Ecuador, presiding over you just said presiding over the conference on disarmament, you just sort of skipped las labores. Yeah, and this sort of thing with nuestros deseos de éxito, pleno apoyo. You know, in English, you want to be sort of saying, we wish you all the best, our best wishes to you. And with the idea of support in English, you're most likely to sort of say, rest assured of our support. Rest assured of our support in cumplimiento de su mandato, discharging. We talk a lot about discharge. It's a very high level, discharging your mandate, implementing is a sort of boring one that you always sit here. Delivering on is very trendy nowadays, where everything's being delivered on. Or if your brain goes, if your brain goes, if your brain stops, just complying. The old comply. Doesn't sound brilliant English, complying with your mandate, but it can get you out of a hole if, as I say, your brain freezes for a moment.
What about the fulfillment of your mandate? Would that work?
Yeah, fulfilling it.
Yeah.
That one, for some reason, I don't find myself saying that very often, but that is also perfectly fine. Yes.
So I was going to ask, is there a rule of thumb to know whether you have to say president or chair, which one it is?
You look at the flag of the guy. It just completely depends. It tends to be the big meetings. Security Council, General Assembly, Human Rights Council have presidents, and the Conference on Disarmament has a president. If you're in doubt, what do you say if you're in doubt, sir? Madam, but usually you want to be looking at the flag to make sure. Yeah, look at the flag. But oh, sorry, Maggie, you want to get down? Okay, you get down here. Sorry, what are you doing? Say hello. There you go. Say hello to everyone. Yes, there we go. It's easier for you in Spanish. It's always just presidente, right?
Yeah, we have the same with comisión and comité.
Oh, okay. If it's
So-
right, okay. What's the rule of thumb there?
Well, it depends on the size also.
Right. Okay, let's go on then. So another volunteer, please. Is anyone? Maybe I can't see because I need to. Okay, well, I'm gonna
volunteer.
Okay, Camilla.
Really?
Where are you
Okay.
from, Camilla?
I'm Colombian.
You're from Colombia. Where in Colombia are you from?
I'm from, well, I was raised in Bogota. I live in the capital city. I wasn't
Okay.
born here, but
Where were you
I'm
born?
pretty-
If can I?
I was born in Medellin.
I've been there, and I've been.
Okay.
I've been. Well, I spent 2 days in Medellin in
Oh, okay.
2001.
Yes, it's a good place at times. It's had a rough history.
I bet it's changed. I'm told it's changed a lot. I mean, I got the thing when I was there in 2001. It was a bit, but I hear that like Medellin's changed a lot, right?
Yeah, they've had
From
a lot of
20
development. Yes, they've had a lot of
Right.
development, but they're back to, and there was a lot of violence back in the 80s when I was growing up,
Right.
and they kind of overcame that, but now it's pretty bad again
Oh,
all
yeah?
over the country.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
So, but anyway.
Okay. Well, I spent a month in Colombia and I really liked it. I really liked the country. I was there when Colombia won the Copa America. That was
Oh, that was
mental.
exciting.
You
That was
remember that?
exciting.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was
had-
in Popayan. When
That's a
that
nice
happened.
place. I hear it's beautiful. I haven't been
It
there.
is very
I hear
nice,
it's very,
very
there's
nice.
a lot of history. It's very colonial.
Yeah.
It's, yes. Yes.
Okay, Camilla, on you go then.
So I go with the second part, but I did have a question.
Yes.
Even though we agree that for the bigger groups, we have presidents instead of chairs. If the verb is used, presidir, we could still say to chair, or commend your efforts in chairing this
Yes.
committee or whatever.
Yes. Yep.
Yes. Okay. Wonderful. So I'd like to seize this opportunity to reiterate Peru's conviction in favor of norms-based multilateralism, strictly adhering to international law and the UN Charter.
Okay, I like what you did. You didn't just say it in Spanish. You didn't like replicate word for word. Like you turned it into. I think like you said, I seize the opportunity. I take the opportunity. I like, so that's good how you did that. And you said norms-based multilateralism, Peru's conviction, belief in norms-based multilateralism. Con stricto apego, you said adherence. I mean, I would probably say, strictly abiding by,
Okay.
strictly in line with, but what you said is fine. Adherence with international law. Oh, got someone else coming in. No, that was good. Do you want to do the next paragraph as well?
Sure. In that regard, we shall continue acting jointly in an effort to strengthen the disarmament architecture, the very architecture that is currently being eroded and undermined.
Okay. So, I mean, you said, I think, in tal sentido, you rendered that. I think, that's one of those things that if you're going fast, if you're interpreting fast, that you can drop, you just leave and just say, we should continue acting jointly. So, okay, just so that, just again, it's one of, you just have to pick your battles sometimes and what you need to do or not. The disarmament architecture, that's exactly what it's called, which has been, I would maybe say, weakened and eroded. You said undermined, right? So that's all good. Okay. Any other questions before we go on? All good. Okay. Let's have some other
rules-based multilateralism, for example.
Rules-based. Yeah, I know what you're getting at. That's what they always talk about. There's the rules-based system. I think if he'd wanted to say rules-based, they've said basado en reglas. I don't know. What about when they talk about this sort of concept of rules-based in Spanish, do they talk about basado en reglas or en normas?
I feel that sometimes both terms are used as near synonyms.
Right.
So, no.
You could probably get away with it. It's just that in English, it's always really rules. You never hear about norms-based or standards-based. It's always rules. So my inclination is always, if you're not certain, just play safe. Okay. Otherwise, you don't want to get accused of putting words into the speaker's mouth. So you might be, maybe it is, but maybe it isn't. So good. Yeah. Just play safe is the general rule of thumb. Okay. Somebody else.
Okay.
On you go, Gerardo.
So the Conference on Disarmament, for which we have gathered today, has a decisive role as the only multilateral negotiation forum about disarmament. As we have pointed out previously, it has to go back to its original negotiating mandate.
Very good, yeah. I mean, so you can use, because we're obviously pretending we're interpreting here, you can really use the acronym, the CD, okay? And okay, so yeah, the Único Foro Multilateral. If you watch that video I was talking about on this conference on disarmament, that I give the little background to it. So in its actual, not in its charter, but in its founding document, I think it's called the Sole Multilateral Negotiating Forum. So there's a specific formulation they use, but unless you knew that already, and what you said is the only, but Sole is the official wording. And I like how you just said needs to go back to its original negotiating mandate. I think that's a good way of just doing a retomar, better than say, I don't know, resuming its. In English, it somehow just sounds better. It needs to go back to its. It needs to return to. It needs to go back to its original negotiating mandate. Let me find page 2 of that now. Okay, Gerardo, I'll just ask you to do the next paragraph as well, perhaps.
Sure. Yeah, Mr. President, Peru also seeks to achieve the main goals of the conference through its current role as the G21 coordinator, considering the importance of maintaining dialogue, cooperation, and transparency.
Okay, that sounds good. Well, G21 is one of these groups at the UN. I think it's a subgroup. You have a big thing at the UN is the G77. The G77 plus China, that's one of the big sort of groups at the UN. So I think the G21 is a sort of subgroup of that. Maybe that, because not all countries are member states of the conference. So it might just be those that are members of the conference, something like that anyway. Teniendo en cuenta, I mean, you said considering, often I'll just say in view of. I think there's a tendency for perhaps non-English people to always go down the line of taking into account, taking into consideration, which is quite a lot of syllables. Whereas usually I would just say in view of, that's 3 syllables, done and dusted, and then it's very, very short to the point. All the rest was yeah, very good. You said, what do you say for conseguir los objetivos? What was the
I think it's
collocation you use?
To achieve the goals.
Achieving the goals, okay, reaching the goals, attaining the goals. So again, one of those, one of those words you want a few synonyms for. Okay, so I'll go back. If Diana, if you're okay, I might ask you to.
In this context, Peru appeals to the political willingness of the member states of the Conference on Disarmament for the forthcoming adoption of the annual report, which, as you presented, is considered by most as a good working basis.
Okay, again, that sort of in esse contexto is one of those things that you could theoretically just leave out. Often,
Leave behind.
Maybe you could just say here. So here, Peru. In English, it sounds perfectly normal just to say just here. Here, Peru calls for political willingness of member states to call for the assumption of report.
Sorry, you said call, right?
Calls
Peru
for,
calls.
yeah. As you which is as a good basis for work. And one thing I often say in my episodes, again, certainly when going from Spanish into English, is sometimes the need to split up sentences. You Spanish speakers, you have a tendency, Latin American speakers, to make slightly long sentences. And so that's one thing we very much focus on looking for opportunities to chop them up a bit where we can. So I'm just thinking that like here, no, what you said, what you did was perfectly right. Okay, I'm just saying that, where was it? Yeah. That here, for example, is somewhere where you could legitimately just break the sentence up and say, this is considered by the majority as being a good basis of our work. So I guess you're probably are you told that when you're learning that, like when you're going into English to try and chop up the sentences? Yeah. Saucissonage, right. It's not as bad as Arabic. So I've sort of been studying Arabic for the last 5 or 6 years, and I look at these statements. Oh my God. Oh, you have like sentences like just like that. All of that would be like one sentence. It's like mental. Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
I said appeals to, and you said calls for.
Appeals for the political. Appeals is all right.
Is that wrong?
No,
appeals?
It's not wrong. No, I don't think so. Appeals.
Can I use appeals then?
I would perhaps sooner go for call, but appeals not wrong. It's not wrong. It's a bit stronger. It's a bit stronger in English, the idea of appealing than just calling.
And it's appeals to.
Appeals, yeah, appeals
to?
appeals for the political. You appeal to someone for something.
But for something.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you want to try the next? Yeah,
one?
if you would, please.
In that regard, we have supported some amendments presented to your text. We consider that with these amendments, what took place during the session this year would be reflected in a more balanced and factual way.
I'm just going to ask you to stop here because I'm not. It's not that what you're saying is wrong, but I want you to imagine again that you're interpreting, and you're probably not going to have that luxury to remember such a big chunk and tag it on at the end. I mean, you can try. Okay, I mean, it's but it's always good to be. When I'm, going through site translations, is to try and render things more or less as you're coming to them, okay, and see, because
so let me go back to the part that says consideramos que.
Yes.
We consider that with them, there would be more balance. There would be a more balanced and factual account of what took place in the session this year. And Peru participated in the high level, and Peru's Minister of Foreign Affairs participated in the high level segment thereof. Okay,
I like how you split the sentence up there. What would I say here? Here we've supported certain amendments, presented, submitted to the text. We believe that I would probably turn that koneas into a subject. I would probably say we believe that they reflect in a more balanced, factual fashion what took place during last year's session. That's probably how I would do it. You know, if you go with the koneas with them, I'm kind of thinking as soon as I heard the quedaría reflejado, again, I'd be looking in English, we want to just go for that subject, verb, object syntax. And then here, okay, so yeah, you might, you know, again, if you want to get this cuyo segmento de alto nivel, obviously in English you would say it the other way around. Probably we'd probably say the Peruvian foreign minister participated at the high level segment. Again, if you haven't got the luck, if it's a fast speaker and you just want to process everything, you might sort of say the high level segment saw the participation of the foreign minister of Peru. So again, when you do, as I say, I highly recommend you do site translations, and you know, just in your head, try and work out what the most how you would render this into English, minimizing the amount of times you're sort of reversing back, if you see what I mean. And I guess it helps if you know someone like a native English speaker, because she can tell you, okay, does that sound normal in English?
And these are amendments, right? Amendments is the right word for enmiendas?
Yes. Okay. Amendments. Absolutely. Yes. Amendments.
Thank you.
Okay. Can we have somebody else, please?
I can try.
Come on, Lara. Where are you from, Lara?
Argentina. I'm still a student.
Okay. Okay. You want to try? I mean, no pressure. If you want to.
I can try.
Okay.
It is therefore transcendental that the Conference of Disarmament adopt a final report that is later transmitted to the General Assembly of the United Nations as a sample of the work carried out and the efforts to revitalize it.
Okay, that's a good try, actually. Just hang on, I'll just take you through what you've done so far. We probably wouldn't say transcendental. We'd say it's crucial, it's vital. Okay. It's crucial for the CD to adopt a final report. At the UN, you talk also a lot about outcomes, like an outcome report, but final report is also fine. Final report that is later transmitted is a word that does get used again at the UN. Yeah, that would later be conveyed to the General Assembly, the GA. Again, you in the circumstances, in the context, you could I would perhaps just delete de las Naciones Unidas, because everyone should know. Okay, everyone knows what the UN. Everyone knows what the GA is. So it's crucial for the Conference of Disarmament adopt a final report that's later conveyed to the GA. Yeah, everyone, and everyone knows there's only, if you're working at the UN, you know what the GA is. So again, you just sort of think intuitively. If the guy's speaking fast, you can drop the de las Naciones Unidas as a, what did you say for muestra? As a symbol, did you say?
Yes, sample.
Yeah, okay, as a sign, maybe as a sign of the work carried out and the efforts to revitalize it. Can you do the next sentence as well?
Yes. Where did I
here, con ello se lograría además.
With this, it will also be possible to send an adequate message to the international community in the current difficult international context.
Okay, very good. Again, I might turn that con ello just into an it. This would moreover send an adequate, adequate, appropriate, fitting message to the international community in the current difficult international context. And you did that pretty well. Why don't you try the conclusion as well, the final paragraph? Any questions, by the way? Is that anything you want to?
I have a question regarding transcendental.
Yep.
You said crucial. Can I say essential as well?
That would work. Yeah.
That
Yeah,
works?
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
Can we also use of paramount importance?
You
for
can, but it's
trascendental?
a lot of
It's too much.
that's a lot of words, a lot of
Oh,
what's the
it's
word I'm looking
long.
for?
It's
It's
long.
long,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes. Yeah. If the
It's
speaker is fast,
paramount that the CD adopts, yeah.
it's paramount. Okay.
Yeah. This of paramount importance, a lot of syllables of paramount importance. It's 7 syllables, whereas it's crucial is just 2. So, but paramount's a good word, like that. Okay, Lara, do you want to just do the final paragraph?
I conclude, Mr. President, by renewing my full support for you at the head of this great conference, as well as Peru's firm commitment to disarmament and non-proliferation, and with the peaceful use of nuclear energy, biological agents, and chemical substances. Thank you.
Very good. Just the one thing. Yeah, this great conference. Okay, so for you want a word.
I wasn't sure about that.
Yeah,
one.
no, it's all right. It's all right. I would perhaps say this august. I often talk about, when diplomats are praising how great the UN is, and this talking about how great a committee is or whatever. This august committee, for example, that's often the word that I will use. And sort of similar to that, often when they're in the the general debate or whatever, and they'll talk about this august assembly, or in these hallowed halls when they're sort of talking about the actual venue. Okay, that's a good expression to be able to draw on in these hallowed halls. Okay. Okay, so that's the first one. That's Peru. And any more questions before we move on? Okay, let me find.
I do have a question.
Yep. Go for it.
I would have said peaceful use, but there's also the word Pacific. So which one to use and when?
That's an interesting one. Okay, no one ever talks about Pacific anymore. Okay, peaceful. The set expression is the peaceful use of nuclear energy. In the UN Charter, when they wrote the Charter, okay, and there's a section that's usually referred to as nowadays as peaceful dispute settlement or peaceful dispute resolution. I can't remember exactly what it is. But in the original wording of the UN Charter, it was called, if you look at the chart, it says Pacific dispute settlement. They actually do use the word Pacific. So if you are in an exam and really wanting to show how clever you were, you might say Pacific dispute settlement. They'd be like, look how well I know the Charter, that I can use this old arcane word that no one uses anymore, but I know exactly where to use it. But otherwise, no one ever really uses it. So just, peaceful. But just know that in the Charter, it does say Pacific dispute settlement.
Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. Okay, let me share this one out. Okay, are you seeing Ecuador up on the screen?
Yep.
Consejo de Derechos Humanos, 34th session extraordinaria. Okay. Okay, so this was back in May. Oh, right. Okay, yeah, this was I think, sesión extraordinaria. I think in English it's got a special session, but I might be mistaken. I think it was a special session on the deterioration of the human rights situation in Ukraine as a consequence, as a result of the Russian aggression. Okay, so, let's see. Can I, any volunteers there? Someone volunteered, is there a Veronica?
Mr. President, Ecuador expresses its profound concern on the serious deterioration of the human rights situation in Ukraine caused by the military attack perpetrated by Russia, which has been condemned since it violates its sovereignty, independence, territorial integrity of Ukraine.
Okay, very good. Yeah, expresses its profound concern voices its profound, because sometimes I say voice, but no, expresses grave deterioration of the human rights situation in Ukraine. I'd say a causa de, I'd probably just say as a result of the military, and I think aggression, you can just use the cognate in English. I think they often talk about the military
really?
aggression. Yeah. You don't have to do anything special with aggression, which we've condemned for violating the sovereignty, independence, territorial integrity of Ukraine. Yeah. Any questions on that? Can I? Or if, otherwise, I'll
comment.
ask. Yes, comment.
I just looked for the name on the internet. It's the 34th special session on the Human Rights Council on the deteriorating human rights situation in Ukraine, stemming from the Russian aggression.
From, that was the wording. Yes, you're right. Very good. Very good. Stemming from.
Sorry for interrupting.
No, it's good, and it's good for me to like. It is the special session. Because sometimes it can throw you when you hear it in Spanish. You think, oh, it must be the extraordinary session or something, but it's just special session. Okay, so Veronica, next para. Dicha agresión.
Wait a sec. Okay, here I am. Such an aggression breaches or violates international law and the principles and purposes enshrined in the United Nations Charter of Peace, Security, and Respect for the equal sovereignty of states.
Okay, yeah, dicha agresión. I mean, you say this aggression. You said violates is a violation of international law, and was that
breaches? Could be or not.
Breach. I think it's this one breaches international law. Again, if I was to hear, I'm just speaking as for me. I hear vulnera. I hear the V and the L. It just automatically makes me just think violates. You know, it's just easier sometimes. Did you know principios y propósitos? Was that a guess, or did you know?
Yeah, principles and purposes.
Oh, exactly. So that's one of the really important chapters, one of the really important expressions chapter in the UN Charter, the principles and purposes of the UN Charter: peace, security, respect for sovereign equality. I think you got it mixed up the other way. So sovereign equality of states. Again, for all those UN Charter expressions, I've said this in other videos. Okay, so I did an episode on the UN Charter, all the important expressions. I did admit if it was for a Chinese audience, but it's all in English. Okay, so I point them to the Chinese expressions, but you can find, again, for the viewers watching this on YouTube, I'll put the link in there. You can go and watch that episode on the Charter. Plus, I have a great glossary of expressions from the UN Charter that I don't know if you watched the episode that I did maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. It was all about what I call it, the ultimate interpreter guide, working at the UN in Geneva. And so in that episode, which is 142, in the description box, I leave a link to that glossary. And that glossary is in English, Spanish, French, and Russian. And so it gives you all the key expressions from the Charter and the like for like renderings in the other languages. So if you want to know more about the UN, if you're looking to work for the UN, that's a really good thing to be able to refer to. Okay, somebody else, anybody else? Okay,
sure, no problem. Sorry, my phone is ringing. There you go. So Ecuador, Ecuador reiterates its firm call on Russia to bring to an end its military incursion into Ukraine and to immediately cease hostilities. We insist on the need to find a peaceful solution to the conflict through negotiations that will restore peace.
Okay, that's very good. Yeah, I mean, here, this firme llamado, we were talking about an appeal earlier on. See, this to me is almost like the appeal. It's slightly stronger than, it's a firm call. I mean, I guess, you could say that in English, but to me, a firm call actually seems to me an appeal. So we just in reference to that word that we were talking about earlier, I might say Ecuador reiterates its appeal to Russia to put an end to its military incursion. I think, and you can perfectly well use the cognate there, into Ukraine. and to immediately, I like how you, so what I like what Santiago did, he didn't play around with this. He didn't try and render it into Spanish. Okay, he just kept with the flow and immediately cease hostility. When I was going through it, the idea I had was, reiterates its appeal to Russia to put an end to the military incursion into Ukraine and to ensure, okay, an immediate cessation of hostilities is the sort of official diplomatic expression for cese de las hostilidades. Okay, but what Santiago didn't do is to say that and call for, and for an immediate cessation of hostilities to take place. Now, he could have done that and it would have been perfectly fine, but I think that works. It's a bit of added unnecessary work on the brain, whereas he just, again, sort of thought about it intuitively and just turned that el cese into, he turned it into a verb, didn't he? Immediately cease hostilities. One just thing, insistimos en, I think I would probably say we stress the need, we insist on the need. I think maybe in English it sounds better to say we stress the need for a peaceful solution to the conflict through negotiations that enable us to restore peace. Sometimes in English, when going into English from Spanish, you find yourself that you have to add in these little words into English, because again we wouldn't that would enable to restore peace. In English, you need an object enable us to restore peace. Okay, so yeah. Any questions?
Or you can turn it into a noun.
Okay, so
the reinstatement of peace or something like that.
Yeah, that enable the restoration of peace. Yeah, that's the other way of doing it. Very good.
The restoration of peace.
Yeah. Okay, Santiago, maybe you want to do the next paragraph as well?
Okay, yeah. Military conflict is the total denial of human rights with devastating humanitarian consequences. The situation of the civil population in Ukraine is deteriorating day after day, and unacceptably so, and action is needed urgently to protect them, particularly women, children, and vulnerable populations. Okay,
let's see what you did there. That's pretty good in general. Conflicto bélico, military conflict. Yeah. That sounds good to me. I was thinking, could you just say like war, or maybe you just say conflict, war, military conflict? Yeah. So I mean, there's nothing. Yeah.
I feel that sometimes people purposely avoid the use of the word war.
Right.
That might be my impression. Yeah.
That what you did, I like what you did there. You sort of that's how you rendered the bellico, military conflict. So I think that's pretty good. It's a total denial. In English, you could probably say a negation as well. I can imagine. I think I sometimes say a negation of human rights. I think I've said that. They wouldn't be wrong. Devastating humanitarian consequences. A good word. Okay, la situation. So you can see here the situation of the civilian population in Ukraine. When you have a situation and it's a bad situation, a word I will sometimes use sort of to show off is like the plight. Okay, that's always like a bad situation. So the plight of the civilian, I think you said civil, so you want to say the civilian population in Ukraine is deteriorating. What did you say? Every day or day in, day out? I think whatever you said was fine. Are unacceptably. You requiere urgente. Maybe here, maybe there's an argument for stopping the sentence, that because I think the requiere refers back to the población civil, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or, yeah.
La situación.
Or is it the situation?
Requiere, no?
The situation requires urgent protection?
Yeah, it's not very well worded.
Right.
Spanish, no.
I'm glad you said. I was just wondering. Right. Sometimes when that happens, you have to sort of correct yourself. You have to correct the bad Spanish or the bad English. So I think you maybe say they require urgent protection, particularly women, children, and you said vulnerable persons. Is that what you said? Vulnerable persons.
Population.
I think you said populations.
Oh, populations. Okay, vulnerable populations. Yeah. You can say persons in situation of vulnerability. Often there's this, when do I say persons and when do I say people? Because they say persons a lot at the UN, especially like in a bureaucratic sense. You talk about persons with disabilities. You don't talk about people with disabilities, persons with disabilities. Don't worry about it too much, I'd say. I think populations as well as maybe would work fine. Okay, maybe I'll pick, how about Camilla?
We condemn the violation of international humanitarian law, the repeated attacks against the civil population, civil infrastructure, especially hospitals and schools, as well as the use of torture, forceful disappearance, summary executions, and gender-based violence.
Okay, there's some good stuff in that. Okay, so international humanitarian law is an obvious one where to go with an acronym. Okay, IHL. You can say international humanitarian, that's fine, but it's a lot quicker to say IHL, and everyone knows what that is. Often, in fact, it'll come in a sort of package with international humanitarian law, international human rights law, international refugee law. International human rights law doesn't really have an acronym, but international humanitarian law is definitely an opportunity where if you're struggling, you can just use the acronym. Repeated attacks against civilian population, civilian infrastructure, especially schools and hospitals, use of torture, desapariciones forzadas. Okay, in English, it's enforced disappearance. Okay. And again, I have a couple of episodes I do on enforced disappearance. I think there was maybe an Argentinian rapporteur in the first 20 episodes, his presentation. So the set expression is enforced disappearance. Sometimes you can refer to it as ED if it's a meeting about enforced disappearance and it's the subject is coming up a lot. You can refer to it as ED. You said summary executions. I think there is ejecuciones sumarias. I think is that not in. So this is specifically extrajudicial executions. Here you would just stick to the extrajudicial. Do you say that in Spanish? Is this sumaria? Ejecución sumaria? Sumarias.
Oh,
okay.
Pero
so hear,
esto también, extrajudiciales también se utiliza en español.
Okay,
Dos.
yeah. But they're not really I wouldn't say they were interchangeable. If you hear extrajudiciales, then just say extrajudicial. And I think you said gender-based violence. Yeah, that was very good. You put in the based. Did you learn that from an interpretation station episode, perhaps?
No, I've learned it.
I say that sometimes. So in English, you would say gender-based violence. GBV, it's often referred to as, and sometimes you have SGBV, sexual and gender-based violence.
Okay.
And maybe you'd like to do the next paragraph as well?
Sure. We reiterate the need for impartial and independent investigations that may bring the perpetrators to justice, enabling effective remedy to the victims.
Very good. That's very good. Yep, independent, impartial investigations. See here, I might sort of throw in, if I'm doing it in English, to ensure that the perpetrators are brought to justice. So as again say, sometimes in the English you have to sort of throw in a word. That's a very important expression to know. Bringing the perpetrators to justice and to enable. Okay, so reparación efectiva. You said remedy, right?
I said remedy.
That's excellent. That's a really good word. Remedy is very, again, versatile. You have lots of these R words in English, like remedy, redress,
Reprieve.
not reprieve's a bit different. That's like
Okay.
a reprieve is if you it's more like a pardon that you'll
Okay.
was it remedy, redress, reparations, restitution? That's the sort of idea. The idea of getting something, compensation. Okay, so remedy and redress are very good. Because because with the remedy and redress, you can more or less fit it into every context. So those are very good words. Okay.
But reparation is used nonetheless.
Effective here, I mean, it would make effective reparations for the victims here. It would work as well. Yeah.
Okay.
For imparciales, wouldn't you use unbiased?
You could, but impartial sounds more natural, to be honest.
Really?
Impartial is used more often, I would say, than unbiased. Yeah. Yeah.
I have a question. If
Yep.
you don't have enough time to say to ensure that perpetrators are brought to justice, can you just say to ensure accountability?
If you're going really fast, I mean, yeah, I think,
If they're really going fast, can you say
really
that?
fast,
And then
yeah, I mean, it more or less comes down to the same thing, doesn't it?
Well, more or
It would
less,
be
yeah.
better probably to say to bring the perpetrators to justice. But again, if you're really struggling and, that would more or less come down to the same thing to ensure accountability, one word instead of
Many.
whatever it is, many. But yeah, so remember that that's sort of, I'd say, sort of almost a package, this idea of bringing perpetrators to justice, the idea of accountability, all these concepts, come together a lot, the idea of remedy, redress, that sort of thing. So again, remember all those sort of words as a package.
To ensure that justice is served, maybe.
To ensure that justice is served. Yeah, I mean, yes. I guess in Spanish, what there's probably something exact similar. There's
Hacer justicia.
Que se haga
Hacer
justicia.
Is that what would you say in Spanish?
Que se haga justicia.
Que se haga justicia, so that justice is. That's a nice way of actually. I like for exactly that. I like that. Make a note of that. Yes. So what Santiago said, that justice is served. That's a really good way of rendering que se haga justicia. That I'm going to use that myself because I mean we say it a lot in English, that idea, to make sure justice
Muy
is
bien,
served.
Santi.
Well played, Santiago. Chapeau. Okay, and who's going to do the final paragraph for me? Or maybe Camilla. Camilla was in a bit of a run there, so why don't you finish us off?
Me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Same Camilla.
Last.
Yeah, the final. Finalmente.
Right. Last, we stress the need to fully respect international human rights law, international humanitarian law, and international law for refugees.
What did I say? I mean, I'd forgotten that last paragraph. What did I tell you? I told you.
You said
often those three come as a
IHL.
package.
I'm
just saying. I told you these three things come, and I'd forgotten that in the last paragraph. And lo and behold, what did they talk about in the last paragraph? But those three.
Thus ensuring unrestricted access to humanitarian aid.
Okay.
Thank you very
Lastly, finally, instamos a que se respete plenamente. So here I would probably turn this this verb. I think that there's an episode I go in this in quite some detail where you have all these, so instamos, we urge. I would say we urge the full respect for international human rights law. Again, rather than turning the respect into a verb, it doesn't. We urge that one respects fully. That sounds messy in English. So often with sometimes it's easier to turn those verbs into nouns, going from Spanish into English. So we urge for full respect of, what do we say, international human rights law, IHL, Derecho Internacional de los Refugiados, international refugee law, and guarantees of access to humanitarian aid without restrictions. I mean, often what the sort of set phrase is unhindered, okay, unhindered, unimpeded access to humanitarian aid. So you probably want to make, I think again, these three words in English, like hamper, hinder, and impede, are a good group of three to remember together.
Okay.
HHI, okay. Unhindered humanitarian access, to guarantee unhindered, unhampered humanitarian access, unimpeded humanitarian access. Any questions then at the end of this second one? There's an argument again, perhaps here, to break this last bit up as a sentence, because I guess that y se garantiza, this refers back to this instamos a que. And so you might want, in English, we urge for full respect of IHL, international human rights law, international IHL, international refugee law. Maybe, and then you maybe want to say there's a need to guarantee access to humanitarian aid, unimpeded humanitarian aid. Okay, that might just sometimes make your life easier if you just sort of start a new sentence and just throw in, for example, there is a need for. That's a good. I mean, this is there is a need is a good. When something is necessary in English, just to start a sentence. Whenever you have these reflexives from the Spanish.
I actually turned it into a gerund. I said thus guaranteeing.
Thus guaranteeing access. Yeah, I think you could do that as well. Yeah, you could do that as well. Thus guaranteeing. I mean, yeah, you could get away with that.
Okay.
Are there any questions then before we move on to the final text? All right. So let me just go down here. So this, I saved this, the best to last, right? I saved Argentina till the end for you. So this was, okay. Debate urgente sobre la situación de los derechos humanos de las mujeres y las niñas en Afghanistan. This was pretty recent, 1st July 2022. I think this was just an urgent debate. This was at the Human Rights Council. So the Human Rights Council has a president. Okay, so who would like to kick us off?
I can start if you want.
Who's that?
Veronica.
Veronica. Okay. Okay. Remind me, where are you from, Veronica?
I'm from Argentina.
You're from. Have you been on before? Were you on earlier?
Yeah.
Yeah, you were here. Sorry.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I have already interpreted for you.
You have, right? Cool. I just can't see your face up on the screen. Hang on, where is?
Yeah,
oh, there's Veronica.
Yeah.
There you are. There you.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. Sorry. Okay,
yes,
now
yes,
I put the face to the name. Okay. Are you in Buenos Aires as well?
Yes, I'm in Buenos Aires.
Is anyone? Are any of you somewhere exotic? Is anyone like in Patagonia or somewhere like that?
I don't know.
Everyone's in Buenos Aires, eh?
I'm in Lima, Peru.
Who's in Lima? Who's in Lima?
Me, Diana.
Oh, Diana, you're in Lima. Okay, I've been to Lima.
But it's not really exotic. But
I quite like Lima. Good food, right? Peruvian
very
food.
Good. Very good, yeah.
Although I think Argentinian, not that Argentinian food's bad. I love steak.
Okay.
Okay, Veronica. So,
Mr. President, Argentina has endorsed the urgent debate, understanding that the Council has a collective responsibility of addressing the human rights situation of women and girls in all their diversity in Afghanistan, who are suffering a severe backlash in the enjoyment of their human rights.
Okay, good. That sounds pretty good. Yes. So, with this one, you said endorsed, right?
Endorsed, yeah.
Right.
Supported.
Yeah, I think my go-to sort of solution, you obviously get it in French as well a lot, accompagner, and I think it's used pretty much in the same context. So I tend to sort of go with support, but yeah, support endorsed. Yeah, this urgent debate on the understanding. I can't remember that on. We would say on the understanding.
I think they skipped a preposition, but understanding only.
On the understanding that
it's
that it's a collective responsibility of this council to address con premura. I noticed you skipped con premura. How
urgently.
Would you urgently, exactly. Yeah.
Can you just say prioritize and then not having the need of using so many words?
Responsibility of this to prioritize the human. Yeah, that would work, I guess. Yeah.
Would that work?
Yeah, I guess that would work. Of women and girls in all their diversity in Afghanistan who've been suffering a severe, okay, you said the retroceso, a backlash. Yeah, I had to think about this. I had to think as I was sitting after my lunch, I was thinking what's the best way of getting this. I think that the best thing I came up with, a severe, because you're referring to the enjoyment, so a severe erosion of their enjoyment of human rights. I mean, backlash is good. Who've suffered a severe setbacks. We often know about setbacks. Yeah.
You know, I saw it in a conference about LGBTI persons, LGBTIQ plus persons. So they were talking about a regress or a backlash in their rights. That's why
another one they use a lot of the UN. They often talk about backsliding. You'll hear that a lot at the UN. I mean, I don't really talk about backsliding myself in everyday conversation, but you hear backsliding. Actually, you know what we'd probably see here? We've suffered severe erosion of the human rights. We probably would compress the retroceso in el disfrute into one word. Okay, go on.
We are especially concerned about what has recently been expressed by the High Commissioner in this regard, that there is an institutionalized and consistent or systematic oppression against women, including measures such as the suspension of secondary education for girls, serious barriers to employment, lack of opportunities to engage in political and public life, limits to their freedom of movement, partnership, expression, and strong advice for them to remain at home.
Okay, this is quite a long paragraph, isn't it? Let's see. I often, whenever I hear preocupa, I'm often troubled by things. I like to be troubled by things. That's often the word I'll say. We're particularly troubled by what the High Commissioner recently said about there being. I mean, here there's an argument perhaps to say. One thing you could do here is, in particular, we're particularly troubled with what was recently stated by the High Commissioner. She said that there was institutionalized systemic oppression of women. It's one way of doing it as well. So systemic, just systemic, okay?
Sorry, systemic. I read systematica and it's systemica what it says.
Systemic, yeah.
Sorry about that.
That's okay, that's okay. Of women, again, or maybe you'd stop the sentence here, maybe que incluye. That's again another point where you might want to split a sentence up. Again, this business with the splitting of spent sentences up, again, it's something I say in my episodes quite a lot, because what it means is that, if you try and deliver this whole thing as one sentence and then you get lost halfway along, you're kind of the speaker's gonna lose the whole sentence. Whereas if you split it up into chunks, if you just end the sentence here, let's just say okay, we're pretty troubled by what the High Commissioner recently said about the existence of institutionalized and systemic oppression of women, full stop. the listener is going to hear that and hear that as a
Yeah.
coherent package of information. Okay. Whereas if you say, whereas if you sort of just continue the sentence and then you get lost, he's going to really sort of lose the whole thing. So that's why it's always important, as a general rule, especially going from Spanish into English, to break up sentences where you can. Measures such as suspension of secondary education for girls, severe barriers to employment, that's all fine. Lack of opportunities to participate in political and public life. Freedom, okay, asociación, freedom of just association, that's one of the big sort of freedoms, okay? Freedom of association, so there's no need to play around with that. And yeah, strong advice to stay at home. That's the sort of collocation that, yeah, we go with advice. Strongly advise you to do something. So yeah, strong advice to stay at home. Okay, shall we have Gerardo?
Okay. So, as stated by the Special Rapporteur on Afghanistan, these measures match the pattern of absolute gender segregation and have the goal of rendering women invisible in society.
Okay, very good. Yeah, so you went, yeah, you rendered it like you didn't wait to say the Special Rapporteur on Afghanistan said. You just immediately rendered the sostuvo, and which is perfectly fine in English, as said by the Special Rapporteur. Even a little thing like that can just make the difference between you. Again, if a speaker's fast, that can just be the difference of you getting a sentence, getting a concept across, or missing it. These measures, okay, you said match the pattern. Yeah, maybe in English you probably say I often say are consistent with, are in line with the pattern of absolute gender segregation. I would probably, y tienen como objetivo, you could just say with the goal of making women invisible in society, as opposed to here going and have as their goal. Again, it's a couple of words more where you could just say just with the goal of making women invisible in society. Okay, and the next paragraph as well, Gerardo, while you're here.
Yes, these orders run against the obligations of Afghanistan, to which they have committed in several human rights treatises, to which they are a state party.
Okay, let me just stop. Yeah. These orders, I would just probably stick with these directives.
Directives.
Yeah, okay. I would just say directives. Run counter to. If you're going to use that, if you're going to be running, then it's better in English. It's better to run. I mean, I will say, you know, these run counter to their commitments, their pledges, whatever. Run counter to.
Breach.
In breach of sounds a bit nicer. Again, you could just say violate.
Violate, yes.
In virtud de, so they're, let's say, in breach of Afghanistan's obligations under numerous. So in virtud, often in virtud, I'll often say pursuant to. You know, you do want to sort of, you know, I guess going into an English B, you want a sort of set phrase that you can always rely on, and pursuant to always works. Again, in English here, you could just say under numerous human rights treaties that it's a state party to. Go on, Gerardo.
In this regard, we urge the de facto authorities to immediately revoke the policies and directives which negatively affect women, and to give priority to the rights of women and girls in all of their diversity, to have equal participation in education, employment, and all other aspects of public life.
Okay. Again, here, al respecto, I might just say here, okay, to not have to say in that respect or in that regard. Here, we urge the de facto authorities to immediately revoke policies to effect. It's always good to also have a couple of alternatives for negatively, okay, that adversely affect, adverse and detriment. Yeah, adversely. Remember, adversely is a good synonym for not always having to say negative. Often talk about having an adverse effect, having a detrimental effect. Find one that you're comfortable with, okay, just as an alternative to always just saying negative. And they should prioritize, for them to prioritize, say, the rights of women and girls and all the diversity, equal participation, education, employment, and all other aspects of public life. That's all good. Any comments, anything, any questions before we go on? Camila said, I'm not quite certain what you said, vis-a-vis. What was that suggestion for, Camila?
Or en virtud de.
Okay, vis-a-vis new. Yeah, that would work actually. Vis-a-vis, yeah, sure. Yeah, I wouldn't use it myself, but yeah, it's fine.
But in a hurry, it works.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Let's Santiago. I haven't heard Santiago's dulcet tones in a while. Are you still there, Santiago?
Yes. I can go on.
Okay. Why don't you?
Yeah. Shall I begin?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. We are also concerned by allegations of arbitrary arrest, extrajudicial executions, torture, enforced disappearances, and assaults on LGBTI people or persons, human rights advocates, women's rights activists, journalists, and humanitarian staff.
Just wait. I'll just go through that sentence first. Yeah, we're concerned by. Great. As I say, I like being troubled. We're concerned by allegations of, you said arbitrary arrest. You can just say arbitrary detention as well. I know detention's longer than arrest, but sometimes the cognate's easier to say than finding the sort of another word. So whatever, detention or arrest, extrajudicial execution, torture, enforced disappearance. I would just say attacks. This attacks against. I would almost say attacks against LGBTI persons, or just against LGBTI persons. Defense sort of human rights defenders is the sort of these days this become a sort of set expression, and to the point that it's all sometimes used as an acronym, HRDs, human rights defenders. In the old days, it was human rights activists, but today more and more you hear about human rights defenders. Here you've got the activistas, okay, women's rights activists, journalists, humanitarian, you can say personnel, staff, often they'll talk about humanitarian personnel, perhaps more than humanitarian staff. It's not a big deal, but again, it might just be easier. In the Spanish, it's personal, so humanitarian personnel. Go on.
We reiterate our call on all political stakeholders in Afghanistan, particularly those in power, to fully respect human rights and international humanitarian law, or IHL.
Go with the IHL. Go with the IHL.
Good.
Yeah. What would I say? Yeah, I would probably say here. I'd probably hear that hacemos. And I'd be thinking, okay, don't know what they're going to be hacemosing. I'd hear that una vez más, and I'd probably say, again, we urge political stakeholders. That's very good for actors. You can also just say actors is fine. Political actors, political stakeholders in Afghanistan, and particularly those. Did you render ejercen?
No, I said in power.
Yeah, I think in English that works without having to bother rendering the verb. To fully respect human rights and IHL. And let's do the next paragraph as well.
Okay. We also express our concern about the serious humanitarian and economic crisis, which is especially affecting women and the most vulnerable populations, senior adults, persons with disabilities, and children. This is a crisis that has been compounded by the recent earthquake
Okay, I'll just stop you there. The series, you said serious. I'm fine with saying grave humanitarian economic crisis. When talking about crises, a grave crisis, which you talk about effect, which has a major. What did you say? Which gravely affects? What did you say here for
especially affected?
Which especially, yeah, it's fine. Or you can just say as a major impact on women and the most vulnerable groups of the population. The most vulnerable. Again, if you're going really fast, if you're in a hurry, you could get away with saying the most vulnerable populations. Personas mayores, I would probably say the elderly is probably the quickest way. I think that, here you're getting into political correctness. What's the sort of political correct thing? Older persons, that's probably the thing to sound, but it always sounds a bit strange. Older persons, like older than what? To me, the elderly is fine. Persons with disabilities did that well. Also, you'll notice what Santiago did. He turned niñas and niños into children, and as far as I'm concerned, that's perfectly good, because I know that obviously in Spanish they're saying the niñas and niños, because if you just say niños, right, it almost loses the emphasis on the girls. I presume is why they say always in Spanish niñas y niños, but in English just the children, I think, gives equal emphasis to girls rather than having to say girls and boys in English. So children is fine. This has been, what did you say for agravado?
Compounded, I think.
Very good. Has been, you can say aggravated or exacerbated by the recent earthquake. Those are maybe a good couple of synonyms to have, compounded, exacerbated. Okay, go on.
We call upon the international community to continue providing humanitarian aid, including essential health services, medical supplies, and to ensure an equitable and gender-sensitive distribution, and also to ensure that the implementation of sanctions will not preclude the provision of essential public services which are necessary if human rights are to be respected.
Okay, maybe solicitamos here. I might urge the international community to continue providing humanitarian assistance, including essential, sanitarios, health service. I sometimes say sanitary services. Health is probably better. Health. What did you say? Healthcare.
Yeah,
I think
services.
That's probably the safest. I like what it's insumos médicos. For some reason, I always have a problem trying to remember for insumos. So what you said is great. Medical supplies. Often before COVID, I would often, when I heard insumo in Spanish, I'd be talking about inputs. But that would usually, I guess, be for like for projects, like for putting together a report or a project. But yeah, certainly when it comes to insumos médicos, that's the expression you want in English: medical supplies. Ensuring equitable, gender-sensitive distribution. And notice again what Santiago did there. He repeated, we need to make sure that the implementation, he sort of threw in, well, I can't remember what it was exactly, but we need to ensure that implementation of sanctions doesn't impede, just feel free just to use the cognate of essential or key public services that are necessary for the enjoyment of human rights. There's no need to really play around with that bit. You can just sort of process it, render it word by word. Okay. Let's have, who haven't we had in a while? Diana? It's Felix. What about Felix?
Sure. Okay.
Does Felix want to try?
I can, yes. I mean, what's the paragraph? I got a bit
okay,
lost
no problem.
here.
No problem.
I lost my connection for a while.
That's it. So
can you
see the page? Can you see where we are? Can you see where?
Yeah.
Okay.
Reiteramos.
Yep. Why don't you give that a try?
Okay, so we state again that this is a very severe multidimensional crisis that can only be overcome by means of political dialogue, an inclusive political dialogue based on human rights that shall guarantee a sustainable peace. For
Okay.
this purpose,
Go on.
oh,
Okay,
sorry.
go to the end. Yeah, go on. Go to the end.
Okay, for this purpose, for this end, it is paramount the representation of all segments of the Afghan society in the decision-making processes, including those who have been historically discriminated as women and the ethnic and religious minorities.
Okay. Reiteramos. You don't need to play around with the reiteramos. Just we reiterate. Okay. We reiterate that this grave multi-dimensional crisis can only be, so you said, overcome, which are very good, or surmounted through inclusive political dialogue based on human rights, which guarantees a last. I can't remember what was the adjectives you used, Felix.
Where?
Una paz duradera y sustentable.
Lasting peace, I think I said.
Yeah, lasting. And if you, okay, yeah. I mean, again, if you're in a hurry, this is one of those sort of occasions. Maybe you can just drop one of these adjectives, right? But if you get me, lasting and sustainable peace, let's say. Now, this is actually kind of important because obviously in Spanish, es crucial, es importante, and then it's a bit. See, in Spanish, you can say this sort of. It's crucial, la representación. When the thing that's crucial is another noun. Okay, but the thing is, in English, it sounds doesn't sound very smooth. If you say it's crucial, the representation of all segments of Afghan society and decision making. You can say it if, like, in conversationally. Okay, if you're talking to someone, it's like, oh, it's really important. Full participation of things, but if it's like a sort of prepared statement, doesn't sound as smooth, right? And so I would sort of maybe advise you here when you hear that, like a sentence in Spanish that begins "es crucial, es importante," is to say what's crucial, is, what's important is, what's vital is, and that is lets you continue with either of, maybe it's a verb, it's what's crucial is to do this or that, or if it's a noun as well, what's crucial is the representation, what's crucial is the participation. Just, it's a small thing, but it just makes your work smoother, I think. You'll find that's something that, do any of you guys do Russian? Do any of you guys work from Russian by any chance, or a Slavic language? You kind of, with Slavic languages, you often get the same sort of construction where they start off with this, like, it's important, and then another noun. So that's a technique I'll often use going from Russian to English. So,
I have
okay.
a question.
Yes.
If you have already started and you have already said it's crucial, can you say it's crucial to have the representation?
Very good.
Of?
Yeah, I like that. That's good. Yeah, that's a good way of sort of getting out of that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Or to ensure. Ensure is
a
good word for that.
Yeah, it's crucial to ensure represent. Yeah, that would work. Yeah, it's good. Thinking on your feet. You gotta think on your feet sometimes. Yeah. Those who've been historically discriminated against, I guess we'd say we're going to talk about discriminated against, marginalized, such as women and ethnic and religious minorities. And Felix, would you like to do the last paragraph as well?
Sure. Last but not least, we would like to yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Last but not least, we would like to convey our support to the work conducted by the Special Rapporteur of the United Nations on Afghanistan, as well as the monitoring work on human rights of the Mission for Assistance of United Nations in Afghanistan.
UNAMA, right.
UNAMA, of course. And the recent trip of the Special Rapporteur to Afghanistan was important to report on the violation on past and present human rights violations. Therefore, we call upon the de facto authorities to continue facilitating the access of these missions.
Okay. Last but not least, okay, yeah, it's quite a flowery way of finishing off. You can just say finally, whatever, but yes. Again, transmitir, this idea we want to express, extend our support, convey our support to the work of the Special Rapporteur on Afghanistan. Again, do you need to render the
de las Naciones Unidas. Again, just think of the you're probably at a meeting that's all these delegations are talking about everyone knows who the rapporteur is. So just intuitively, if you just say the special rapporteur, everyone should really know who that person is. So you can, that's again something you could maybe drop, or even, the special, there's only one rapporteur, right? I mean, everyone knows the guy's sitting there. He's probably answering all these questions. We'd like to convey our support to the work of the special rapporteur, as well as to again, in the circumstances, there's probably a good chance that you wouldn't even need to say the United Nations on Afghanistan, as well as the monitoring work on monitoring human rights by UNAMA. You'd probably just go straight into the acronym. The recent trip by the rapporteur, the recent visit here you could probably, by this point, just delete special, okay? You could say the recent trip by the rapporteur to Afghanistan was important. I think, what do you say for informar, Felix? Was it report? Did you say report or info?
To report.
Yeah,
yes.
very good. Yep, to report on violations of human rights. And here you could just say past and present. So okay, usually in English you want to have the adjective before the nouns, right? But with something here, you could just say violations of human rights past and present, rather than having to correct. But try not to correct yourself out. That's one thing I always say. Don't correct yourself. Often that's one of the challenges going from Spanish to English, right? Is you have the adjectives that come after the noun, and there's sometimes this temptation to leap in too early. Sometimes you find that you leap in too early before all the adjectives have finished. And the way to get out of that is to say, let's just say I'm doing this here on human rights violations, past and present violations, repeating it, okay, like as if you're adding emphasis as opposed to like making it sound that you're correcting yourself. Okay, so that's always a good little tip to remember. Like if that happens, if you jump in too early, the nice way to get out of it is just to say those adjectives that you missed out and repeat the noun as though you're giving added emphasis to it. Por lo que, that's a sort of whenever I hear por lo que, that's a sort of classic moment. I think to myself, okay, just start a new sentence, and therefore we call on the de facto authorities to continue facilitating access to new missions. Thank you very much. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Any questions? Yes, I see Camila putting her hand up.
I had a question about fuertes consejos, back to the second paragraph in the speech.
Yep.
Could that be admonishment, or is admonishment more towards the positive?
No, admonishment's definitely not positive. That's a bad thing. That's like a reproche. It's like but I think that's going too far. I think that's like the one thing I was thinking about for it was warnings to stay at home.
Okay.
That was one sort of, I did think about, is there a better way of saying that? But if a warning perhaps, but I think admonishment is
doesn't work.
That's almost like you're already punishing them, whereas here they're just sort of saying, strongly advising them.
Okay.
Gerardo, I saw you also put your hand up. Did you?
No. I was only clapping. I was like giving Roland a big round of applause. Yes.
Yeah, this
okay.
Was great.
Well, thank you very much.
Very good. A very productive afternoon here. So thank you very much for that.
That's very kind of you to say so. And if ever you want any more like that.
Very nice and funny learning experience.
I'm glad.
Fun is important.
I'm glad. Please feel free if you'd like to do something similar again. I'd be more than happy to do more.
Excellent. So, Roland, thank you very much for preparing this workshop for us. We enjoyed it very much. We learned a lot, and I'm sure that all of us will start applying these things in our work as soon as we can. And so now I'm turning to Spanish. Bien, bueno, muchas gracias a todos por asistir, por su interés en este taller. Esperamos que lo hayan disfrutado, que hayan aprendido. Y bueno, ya saben, estamos aquí para preparar actividades que justamente nos ayuden a hacer mejor nuestro trabajo y para superarnos permanentemente. Así que con esto les damos las gracias a todos, a los socios de ADICA, a Paula de la USAL, a los estudiantes, a Cami nuevamente por orquestar todas las alternativas para que esta capacitación fuera posible. Y con esto los dejo para que sigan disfrutando. Sí, Raúl.
Could I just ask one? Could someone perhaps adjourn the meeting for me? You know, I always adjourn the meeting at the end. Could anyone perhaps adjourn the meeting for me? If you've got like has someone got like a little hammer, something to hit, and just to close the meeting, you know?
How about
Don't have
this?
anything with me right now.
Yes, Camilla. What have you got? Yeah,
Okay.
have you got something suitable there, Camilla?
Bien. ¿Sí?
So
¿Queda levantada la sesión entonces?
I believe that this is. Hang on. I need to make sure we have the meeting number right.
Maybe you should stop sharing the paper.
Aha, shall I close? Yes, very good. Yes. Let's see. How do I stop sharing? Pause share. Maybe if I pause, hang
At
on.
the top of the screen, I think it should
Pause
have the
share,
stop
stop share. Okay, that's better, isn't it? That's much better. Whoever said that, well done. Good point. Let me just see what episode we're on to.
144, is it?
100. I've got a feeling it's 144.
Santiago,
144 exactly.
Santiago sugiere una foto de familia, así que la podemos hacer.
I see a couple of people suggesting a family photo. So
Yes,
does everybody
take
agree
one.
with that? Is everybody ready to turn on their cameras so that we can take the picture?
Sí.
Bueno, muy bien, vamos a que. Should I do it in Spanish?
You can do it in Spanish, yeah, why not?
Queda entonces levantada la sesión con el episodio 144 de The Interpretation Station. Muchas gracias a todos. Hasta la próxima. Yeah, just